The thing that nobody wants to admit about healing from grief is that healing doesn't just magically release you from the grips of pain. It actually gives room to all the things that you have been pushing back, all the things you have not allowed to come to the surface, rise right up to the top. Let's talk about it. I've talked about this before, and I will probably never stop talking about it, but the first year of grieving is like you're caught in the matrix. I didn't remember it for a really long time, and there are still pieces of that first year that I don't remember. And there's actually a piece of a Mel Robbins podcast that talks about how they say that the first 5 years after loss is the beginning stages of grief. So that was nice for me to hear, but I say that because when you're in the first, second, third year of grieving, all the little things are just tied into that big piece of grief. So it's like all the little crumbs that make up the cake. It's the cake is the grief. So for me, I lost my mom, right? That is the biggest thing ever. Everything that is happening to me within the first year of grief doesn't really matter to me because there's no space for it. My brain, my heart, my body, my soul only can give space to that grief. For example, my grandmother died on my mom's birthday. My mom's birthday was in October. My mom passed in March, like a year and a half after my mom died. And I remember not really feeling much about it and then feeling really bad about not feeling much about it. And for a long time, I thought that the loss of my mom broke me. I was like, wow, am I never going to feel something heavily again because I've felt the heaviest thing already? But that's just not the case. My heart and my mind didn't allow for me to really feel the grief and the loss of my grandmother because there was no space for it at the time. That brings me back to my point. As I heal from the loss of my mom, you think to yourself, oh, I'm just going to step into the freedom of healing. No, unfortunately, for me personally, what happens is that actually just creates space for all the little things that you were putting off grieving to just find their way in. So as the grief from my mom gets not smaller, but just handled, okay, now I'm able to be like, oh, wow, grandma died. Okay, now 3 years after my mom died, now almost a year and a half after my grandmother died, I am feeling the deep grief of losing my grandmother. She was like one of my best friends. And so now I'm grieving again. But I do believe that going through the loss of my mom and actively healing, I'm still healing, right? But actively healing from the loss of my mom has prepared me and paved the way for me to find success in other loss. And that's something that people don't talk about either, is it doesn't soften it. It doesn't make it easier, but I feel like I was more prepared for it and was able to put a label on what my emotions through that grief were, now that I can finally grieve and now that I've been through grief. I also want to talk about healing specifically because healing is a process. As cliche as it sounds, I want to remind you that healing really is a process. Healing can feel really good some days, and healing can feel like progress. And then you have days where healing feels like you're running full speed headfirst into a brick wall, right? And that fact doesn't mean when you have days that feel like you're running into a brick wall, that doesn't mean that you're going backwards. Okay, that is proof that you're still human. That is proof that grief is going to come with you everywhere you go. And I would say too, as these other things show up in your life and come back to the forefront, to circle back, as we talk about the first 2 years, especially, right? Being Black, for me, they were completely blacked out. I lost friends. I lost my relationship. I lost my community. I lost myself, right? All of these things did not get to come into my space for a long time because I didn't even start to even try to heal from my mom's passing until up until 2-3 years after she passed. Okay. So you got 2-3 years worth of loss that you didn't even think about, that now all of a sudden you're, oh my gosh. Yeah. I have to grieve all of my friends. Oh my gosh, yeah. I have to grieve my 4-year-long relationship. And I have to grieve my living situation. I have to grieve my relationships with my family because they're not the same, because I'm not the same. The laundry list goes on and on and on, and it's ongoing. And I think that it's never ending. I don't want that to sound so like, oh my gosh, I'm in this never ending woe is pain, right? I don't want it to come across that I'm saying like your pain's never going to end, but I want it to come across as my pain's never going to end. But with each waking day that I find healing and the initial loss and grief of my mom or my significant other, whoever you lost, with each day that comes healing, I am getting grips on how to handle this. I'm getting grips on how to handle these things better. I am growing as a person so much that when I remember things that I might have lost within that year, it's not going to bring me to my knees in grief. It might. There are things that bring me to my knees in grief that I never thought would. Let me think of an example. Oh, I broke down today thinking about this platform and thinking about how grief has put my mom in so many people's hearts without her even being here. Tears brought to my knees today thinking about that. Right? Like grief will always bring you to your knees. I think it's a blessing to feel like that. I will always say this. It is a blessing to feel so deeply. A lot of people can't do that. And a lot of people I couldn't do that until I experienced the loss of my mom. But anyways, let your grief teach you how to pick other pieces of your grief up with an open mind and with an open heart, and learning more about yourself and learning more about how you handle things and how you need people to show up for you. And I think we'd be remiss to not look at grief in that way and not look at our grief within grief in that way. My grief has healed me so much and brought me so far that yes, I remember something awful that was said to me through my grief, but I'm not angry about it anymore. I can't be angry about it because what's the point of being angry about something that happened 2 years ago? I don't even talk to that person anymore. If I was anyone else than who I am through my grief, things that I remember from like 3 years ago, it'd be like, I'm pissed. Why are you mad? That happened 3 years ago. They don't even think about you anymore, right? Like let your grief heal you in that way too. As your grief continues and as you continue to heal from grief, I think it's important to understand that as you sit with grief longer and as it takes up more of your time, it becomes like a relationship. Like I remember somebody saying to me, grief is like picking up a hitchhiker on the side of a road, but you didn't actually stop for it. They just like jumped into your car. And at first, as you're driving, it's uncomfortable because it's new. And I don't know, maybe it smells bad, or maybe, it's awkward because you don't know what it is and you don't know how to talk to it. It's like a person, right? The hitchhiker. You don't know how to talk to the hitchhiker. You don't know who the hitchhiker is. But as you talk to the person, as you talk to this hitchhiker, as you ask them their name and you ask them about their family and you sit with the hitchhiker as you're driving and you hand them the aux and let them play their favorite song. As you sit with grief, it becomes more and more tangible and less uncomfortable and easier to manage. As you heal from grief and it's 3 years later, 4 years later, you've been sitting with it for that long, as other things come up in your grief, yes, they might upset you, but they will be easier to manage. I think another piece of grief within grief is grieving things that you won't get to have in your future. So I grieved my mom and I'm grieving my mom. And there are things within that come with it. Like my mom will never get to see me try on wedding dresses. My mom will never meet my kids. My mom will never get to help me draft another email at work. Like there's so many things in the future that she doesn't get to see. And my brother and sister-in-law had a baby. Shout out Ellen. Love you, girl. She's 6 months. She's not gonna know that this is happening. But they had a baby 6 months ago. And it was the first time that I really grieved to the fact that my mom would never meet my children, because as I spend more time with her and as I, watch my brother become a dad and be a really good dad, I find so much grief. And the fact that she's never gonna be here to see her grandchildren. And she was such a good mom that I can't even imagine how amazing she would have been at the role of grandmother, but we'll never know. And that's something that I grieve. And that's something that I think I will continue to grieve as my life moves forward. My mom will never get to meet the partner that I end up with, the person I end up with. Yes, I am single, but that's not fun because I got to talk about my dead mom. And not only do I got to talk about my dead mom, but my partner will never get to meet her. That's something I grieve every day too, is the relationships that she will never have to the people that I love. And I grieve the fact so many things. She was not going to be at my wedding. She's not going to see my first house. From my mouth to God's ears, I'll own a house in this economy. All right. God forbid. But you know what I mean? Like, I can give you 1,000 examples, but my point is as we talk about grief within grief, you're grieving scenarios that you wrote your whole life with her in, right? Like, I'm not supposed to watch my mom die at 25. No one's really supposed to watch their mom die. Hot take. We're all going to have to do it someday, but nobody should have to do that. It's not a good time, okay? But I think about the laundry list of things that I'm grieving through my grief. And like I said before, those are the smaller things in the wider scheme of the grief, but those things still creep up and take up space. Eventually, like, buckle up, babe. The grief, right when you think you're taking a step forward, which you are, okay? Not negating. But you think you're really stepping into healing. It's like, oh, the grief is like, oh, you've created more space for me. It's like when you're sitting in the window seat on an airplane and somebody bigger than you sits in the middle and you move over to make more space for yourself, but they just end up like coming into the space and taking over the space and like, oh, you're making more space for me? No, I'm not making more space between us. You know what I mean? And it's like waiting in line at Target. Somebody's really close to you from behind, and you take a step forward and they just get closer. That's what grief does. You create some space. It comes right in to remind you it's not going anywhere. So sit with it, live with it, let it come in. You can't push it away. It's always going to make its way in. And that's okay. Remember, the unfortunate part about this is that it is now a part of you, attached at the hip. And you have one of two choices. There's only two. You can let it consume you and not create space for it ever, or you can start to heal and let those little nuances weave through. Either way, we're here for you. I'm here for you. And I'm grateful that you're here. Listening to podcasts like this and coming into this space is a testament to the fact that you want to heal. It's a testament that you are taking the steps to understanding grief a little bit more. And I'm grateful that you're here. I'm grateful that you chose this avenue. Anyways, in the comments down below, tell me something that you are grieving in your grief. Tell me a little something that you are finding that you're having to grieve. Tomorrow's another day, and I'm proud of you for making it through this one. All right, talk to you later. Love you, bye.